Wednesday, March 22nd. So let's see what we have there. You have camp shirts. Mrs. Butts has your current camp shirt, so you'll get them when you go to her class. Globy's One Charger Challenge, school musical tomorrow. We did this. Our times are now all the way down to 11 seconds or less because kids are getting faster. With Blue Sheet, we should now have every question on there answered because we got to this yesterday. The two main barriers to the Underworld because we had kids get eaten. If you are a kid that is still missing answers on the Blue Sheet, here's how I can help you. So at this point, you should be good. If you go to Canvas, I keep telling you that there's this thing called Myth Page. If you click on Myth Page, it takes you to my Myth Page. On there is the thing that says Blue Myth Sheet Answers to help you. When you click on that, it brings up all the answers. Oh. And then you can just click on that. Now, you can't just print that to turn it in, but if there's any questions you're still missing, you can go click on there, find the one that you're missing, and then you're more than welcome to do it that way.
I thought we had to watch a whole video.
Hopefully this makes things a little bit easier on you for those of you who are a little bit whiny, which may be a lot of you. So continuing our deathy bits from yesterday, when you die, which god's job is it to take?
Hermes. But he can't go all the way. Hermes can't go all the way.
Hermes can't go all the way in because what is the first barrier he gets to?
The Styx. River Styx.
Nicely done. That is where the River Styx comes in. And you have spent 10 week points this week, just so you know. Okay. Then, not right now, back to the River Styx. How are you supposed to get across River Styx?
The boat. The boat guy. You have to have the gold coin.
Do you remember his name?
Her name
starts with a C.
It does start with a C.
Charon.
How do you get across with him?
But you gotta give him a gold coin.
Gold coin.
Your parents put it into your mouth.
There you go, putting it into your mouth when you die. And then if you don't have a gold coin,
then you have to wait in the line that can last up to how much years possible.
You don't get to use your fast pass. You are then stuck having to wait in the line. Then if you get across the other side, we get to the next barrier.
Three-headed monster.
Chronos.
Three-headed dog.
Cerberus, never mind.
And that's Cerberus, who's the one that stops you. And that is where we ended with you guys, right?
Kylie died.
The dog.
No. So he can only smell living things.
Only smell living things, and we tried to rescue you.
Well, aren't they dead there?
And then that's where the dying.
Can I be the one who gets them out and survive?
So at this point, you have now gotten our people across, and except for the fact that you're dead, but you're clear as far as Cerberus. This area, the main area of the Underworld, actually had a name to it, and it was called the Asphodel Fields. And so that was the name of this main Underworld area that was there. And here is where you're going to find the king of the Underworld on a throne.
Hades.
And then you're going to find a girl sitting next to him. And that's where Persephone comes in. Only a few months of the year. And then the rest of it was just dead people who were just standing around, walking, not being tortured. Nothing bad happens to you. You're just dead and bored. And for thousands of years in Greek mythology, this was all that existed. There was no heaven, there was no hell, there was no torture, there was no good. It was just, you're dead and you're there.
Wait, so what happened to me?
But then, you're dead and
They're dead.
Zeus eventually comes down to talk to Hades and goes, hey, I've got some humans that are making me grumpy, and I need a place to put them for a special torture. And Hades goes, well, you're in luck. There's an area that I never go to that has some titans down there already. That area being Tartarus. Because what titans are down there?
The bad ones.
There you go. He goes, so I don't even use that whole area of the Underworld. So Zeus uses the top part around where the big pit is, and he starts putting punishments up there for humans. But these punishments are not things that, like for normal people. Like if you went around and were a murderer, you did not go to Tartarus. If you killed babies, you don't go to Tartarus. If you go around pushing old women in front of buses, you don't go to Tartarus. If Zeus gets a brand new pair of Air Force Ones, and the first day he has them, you step on the toe, you go to Tartarus. So the only way you went to Tartarus is if you did something to make Zeus mad at you. And I have 4 stories that we're going to talk about in a moment of people who did a thing to make Zeus mad. Tantalus, Sisyphus, Ixion, and then Dionysus. And so those are going to be the 4 big stories. There's other ones, but these are the 4 main ones.
I excelled as Zeus.
So then again, This was the only thing for a while until Greece kept getting into wars. And during these wars, some people would be really impressive when they fought. These warriors would sort of be above and beyond, to the point that the gods were so impressed, they thought they deserved something more than just the underworld. So the gods got together and created a new area for warriors that were impressive in battle. And they called this area the Elysian Fields.
There's no heaven or heck.
Correct again. And so the Elysian Fields was just for warriors who were super impressive in a battle. And then when you went to the Elysian Fields, still in the underworld, but now it was basically like flowers and grass and little butterflies and bunny rabbits, and you could walk around and touch little fuzzy things. And it's adorbs. And it was great. Gani?
Huh? I have a question. If the three-headed monsters only smell living things, how do they die? Because they're all dead.
How did what die?
Like the people that go through. Because they can only smell living things.
Right, so up on Earth, that's when they come down here and travel across.
Oh,
so
right.
his only job is to smell living people who come across.
Oh,
There you go. So in the Elysian Fields, you also had a special choice you could make.
You weren't good enough.
When you were here, if you were one of the great warriors, you could choose to be reborn and start life all over again. You could go and have a conference with Hades, say, I want to do life again. You would contact the Fates, they would give you a whole new string, and then you would be reborn as a new little baby. But you would not remember anything from your previous life. And the drawback is, if you went through your life and you were just a normal person, even though you made it here the first time, you might get stuck here the second time. But sometimes there were warriors who were so impressive that even the second time they were a human, they were an impressive warrior again, and they got sent here twice. Now things got tough. Because if you went here twice, if you could do it 3 times, meaning you choose to be reborn again, go through life, become a great warrior, impress the gods, and they send you here, instead of going to the Elysian Fields, you got to go to this place called Isle of the Blessed. And Isle of the Blessed was actually up on Mount Olympus, and you had to take nectar and ambrosia and be a god and hang out with the gods up there. Bad news is, I actually can't find any stories of people making it there. I can find stories of them talking about it, and the stories will tell you how to get there, but I wanted to be able to be like, there's this guy named Babo who was a great warrior. I can't find it. They just talk about it being a place that existed. This was how all of the underworld worked for you. Now, I'm going to give you guys a copy of this map along with the stories of these 4 gods. You have a choice. If you are wanting to get an A on quiz, those stories, there are going to be questions from them on the quiz. If you're not aiming for an A+ on the quiz, then you can skip over the stories. It's like 2 of the questions on there. You can still get a B and be fine. But if you are wanting to get A+, you're going to have to read the stories. To help you, I'm going to tease you a little bit with what the stories are about. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to hand out the stories to these kids. I'll be right back to you. There we go. So, home children, I popped up on the screen. It's probably hard to see on there, but I used to have a chalkboard where I drew out little pictures of what happened. So, the Dionysides are going to be 50 sisters who killed their 50 husbands all in one night, which normally is not something that would make Zeus mad, but Zeus actually set up the wedding. So, them killing their husbands went against what he said. Tantalus, I'm going to tease you with more information in a second. Ixion is a story about a guy who tries to flirt with Hera right in front of Zeus. Sisyphus, there is a chance you've seen this. It's about a guy who has to push a giant rock up a hill, and every time he gets close to the top, like the rock would roll back down. And it's because he tricked Hades and got Hades into handcuffs and locked him into a closet.
What?
And no one could die. So that's the story of Sisyphus. With Tantalus, I'll give you the quick version of it just to give you an idea of what would happen. Tantalus was a human who was friends with Zeus and got invited up to Mount Olympus, and he figured out that the gods, rumor was that they were allergic to human flesh, and if they ate humans, they would die. So he thinks it's a good idea to invite the gods back to his place one time for a party. So he invites all the gods back to his place and decides that he is going to try and sneak human flesh into their food.
Where did he get the human flesh?
Good question.
Oh!
Luckily, he had the son named Pelops, and he invites his son in, and goes, son, I need your help with dinner. And then kills his son and puts him in the stew and feeds his son to the gods. Turns out the gods are not allergic to human flesh, they just don't like it. They find out about this whole plan, and they torture Tantalus. And the way they torture him is Zeus takes him down into the underworld, puts him into a hole, and because he tried to torture the gods with food, Zeus tortures him with food and makes him have this insatiable hunger where you can't stop being hungry, and then puts a food tree right above him, all this different fruit. And then every time he would try to reach up to touch the fruit, wind would blow through and make it just go just outside of his fingertips where he could just touch. And then as soon as he would reach up and touch the food, he would get super thirsty. And the whole pit would fill with water. But before he was able to bend down and drink the water, it would disappear and the tree would come back down. And so he had to keep going back and forth between having all of this water come around him and then having the tree above him. And it was this non-stop hunger that he had. And so I found old drawings they had of it. And here's Tantalus in the water with the food. Same thing here. There's the water and the food. Luckily, he was in the underworld, so he was not able to die, and Zeus could keep him alive. It is where we get the word tantalize from. It's a big word that means to try and taunt somebody with something, where you hold it just outside of their reach and they can't quite get to it. That's tantalizing them. Juju.
Why wouldn't he just put a bowl in his hands, like his hand as a bowl, and then swoop that up and
swoop what up?
The water.
Because as soon as he put his hands down, the water went down.
Why can't he keep one hand up there and then one hand?
You can, but then as soon as you try to reach, but see the thing was the water would move with your hands. So as soon as you would move a hand down, the water would always stay just below wherever your hand was.
Move your face down and keep your hands up.
Yeah. If you're trying to outsmart Zeus, it's probably not going to work.
Yes, it is.
And then this is the story of Sisyphus. And this was a guy I found who had a tattoo of Sisyphus on his arm. But pushing a giant rock up a hill, and that's because he locked Hades into a closet, and apparently that made the gods mad, because no one could die for a couple days.
How is that torture?
That's a good question. I bet there's a story that explains it.
Because the rock always rolls down when you go to the top.
So now, let's talk about teenagers making poor choices. Because we've been talking about adults who make poor choices. Today's story is about a teenager who makes poor choices. We're going to talk about a kid named Phaethon. But first, I have to give you a little background on this. It deals with Apollo. So, with Apollo, the guy over yonder, what was his main job?
Hotties.
The sun across the sky. So the way the Greeks... Do you remember the name of the body of water in the middle of the world?
Antarctic.
Mediterranean.
So the Greeks believed you had the Mediterranean Sea in the middle, and then on one side of the world there was a giant mountain, and Apollo had a castle on top. And on the other side of the world there was another mountain with nothing on top. And so the idea was, every morning he had his big chariot. Stories varied. Some said that the wheels were on fire, some said the horses were on fire, some said that he had a helmet he put on that was on fire. Somewhere, there's fire. And him going across from one side to the other was us watching the sun. But while he crossed, there were monsters up there. And you would see things like a giant scorpion, or a bull, or a giant crab. And so you guys would recognize these things today.
That's my zodiac.
The zodiac signs.
Where's Libra?
The zodiac
So
signs.
that was where's my sign at?
Where's
Oh,
Libra?
it's right up there next to the kid losing points for yelling at me. Oh, you might not be able to see it. And so they thought these were actual monsters that were up there in the... Rumor is we're going to fight. Big monsters that were up there in the sky. So every day when Apollo went across, he had to be strong enough to fight off these monsters that were up there. He would land over here and then go down the mountain in the evening time. And then when he got down to the water, there was a boat. He would get onto the boat with two of each animal and Noah. I found a random picture. And then they would go across, and then the next morning he would go up, and then reset every day. Problem is,
Sucks.
that's the big part of it. It was a full-time job, and it was exhausting. And people would bring up, well, wouldn't it be smart to just put like another castle over there, and then you at least have a lot more free time? It would, but that doesn't work. Why would he always have to leave from here every day?
Because it rises from the east and sets in the south.
Sun goes the same direction every day. Sun's always going one way. It doesn't go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So they had to have an explanation for why the sun always leaves from the same mountain. And they assumed Apollo just liked going back to that same spot. The problem is, as Gandhi pointed out, It's a full-time job, and Apollo doesn't get to do his other favorite activity,
Hard.
hitting on women.
Being a
And
thought.
he realizes, I need a lot more time hitting on women, because being up there is a great job, but it is not allowing me to mac on the ladies. So he decides to retire from being the son. And now he's going to move into middle management.
Who doesn't?
So he decides instead to hire somebody else. And he has a friend of his, another Titan, by the name of Helios. And Helios becomes the new sun god who is going to take the sun across the sky. Problem is, Helios had a family. He was married to a human girl and was spending time with her, and they had children. And he had to abandon his family in order to start this job. His son's name
Was for something.
was Phaethon. And that's the story we're going to get to.
Phaethon.
No, right now.
Phaethon.
Right now.
So Phaethon, who was Helios' son, problem is, Phaethon never met his father. Phaethon grew up just knowing his brothers and sisters, and then also his mom, but never knew who his dad was because he was a wee tiny child when Helios got the job and left. So he grew up not knowing who his dad was. And one day, while he was at school, there were these things at school called bullies. And they started to harass him and make fun of him.
What is
And one
that?
of the biggest things that they made fun of him for was the fact that he did not know who his father was, because kids are jerks, and they would harass him about that. So when he got tired of all the kids at school harassing him, he starts going home and talking to his mom, and he's like, Mom, kids at school are really mean, and they keep saying that I don't know who my dad is, and I've asked you, but you said you would tell me someday when I was older. Please tell me who my father is so I can go back and tell those kids. So his mom takes him outside, puts her arm around him, and then points up at the sky and goes, do you see up there? That's your father. He goes, my dad's dead? She goes, no, your dad's not dead. That's your dad. And she points to the sun. He goes, the sun? She goes, yeah. Your father is Helios, and he took that job when you were a wee baby. That's why he's not around. But he watches over you every single day as he goes across. So know that even though he's not here, he's watching you while he's down there.
He's not even
And
looking.
Helios gets all excited. He was like, that is great. So he goes back to school the next day, and he confronts the bullies. And he goes, you guys are a big bunch of jerk faces. I do have a dad. And he points up to the sky, and he goes, that's my father. My dad is the sun. I'm the son of the sun. And the bullies all go, I apologize. We did not know that was your father, and we apologize for all of our poor choices. Not even a little bit, no. They push him into a creek, and they make fun of him. They go, yeah, and my dad's a piece of grass. And they make fun of him and say, there's no way your dad is the sun god because you're a gigantic wussy, which makes him really sad. So he comes up with a plan. He's like, all right, if these kids at school don't believe that that is my father, I'm going to prove it to them. So he goes off on an adventure and searches the world and just leaves his mom. He's like, Mom, I'm going out for milk. And it's gone. And then he just disappears. I mean, he can't go out for cigarettes. I mean, he's too young, but milk, that works. And he takes off and says, I'm going to go find. And he spends the next several weeks until he finds, every day he watches where the sun leaves from and tracks down the mountain that he thinks is the right mountain that has his dad at it. Spends time climbing to the top of the mountain and finds, and when he gets there, there's a giant palace. And he gets excited. He's like, this is it. And he knows it's early in the morning. The sun has not left yet. It's still dark outside, so his dad should be there. So he steps up to the giant doors, boom, throws open the doors, steps inside, and goes, ah! And he can't see anything. There's blinding light, and he drops to the ground and starts screaming. All of a sudden, he hears a booming voice say, who dares enter my kingdom? And he looks up, and he can't see anything. He goes, my name is Phaethon. My mother said that you are my father, and I have come to approach you to see if that is true. And then all of a sudden, whoop, the light disappears. And when he looks up there, he sees this large Titan putting away a big, bright, shining helmet into a box and closing it. And the man says, come here, small child. And Phaethon walks up towards him, and he looks down at him. He goes, what did you say your name was? He goes, my name is Phaethon. And he tells him his mom's name. And all of a sudden, this Titan reaches out his hand and goes, Phaethon, I am your father. And reaches out.
I already know that.
Nice reference. And he goes, I am your dad. He goes, your mom has been telling you the truth. I got this job when you were a small child, and every day as I've been driving across the sky, I've been looking down and seeing you, and I love you very much, and I apologize I've not been there for you. So to make it up to you, since I've been missing every birthday, not Christmases, because Jesus isn't born yet, so we don't have Christmas, but I've been missing all of your birthdays, I'm going to give you your best birthday present ever. He goes, what is it? He goes, here's what I'm going to give you. You may make one wish of anything you want, and if it was within my power, I will grant it to you. And to guarantee it, because you are my son, I swear on the river Styx, whatever it is you ask for, it shall be done. What do we know about swearing on the river Styx? So you cannot break that promise. That was Helios trying to make a big promise. So Phaethon gets excited. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, ooh, how am I? And the biggest thing he wants to do is teach those bullies a lesson. He's like, I gotta figure out. And he comes up with an idea. Something that only his father could do, who is the sun god. Something only his dad would give him the ability to do. And that would be
Show the bully. Scream from the
Driving the thing.
driving his dad's car.
What?
So he says, Dad, what I want to do is I want to drive your car for one day. You know, the sun chariot. He goes, I want to drive your car for one day across the sky. And tomorrow we're going to find out what happens when he tries to drive the sun chariot.
He's gonna
It
crash.
doesn't go well.
We have time.
Oh, wait, we do, don't we?
5
Wait.
minutes.
No, we don't. Not 5
We have
minutes. We
3.
still have... Huh?
He's gonna crash and kill all the dinosaurs.
I have enough to get a little bit farther, so hang on. So he goes, all right, I'm going to get to some of the good part here. He goes, tells his dad, I want to drive the car. His dad goes, no, I can't do that. He goes, what now?
He
He
dies.
goes, well, here's the problem, son. I'm a god. You're not. You're only half a god. I'm big. You're not.
Small.
There are these giant flaming horses that drive the sun chariot. You have to be able to control the reins. If not, the chariot's going to go wherever it wants. Pick something else, whatever you want. I'll make that happen. But this is not possible. As we know, Phaethon is a teenager. Do teenagers listen to their parents?
No.
Not even a little bit. Same as Phaethon back then.
I don't
And
listen to
Phaethon
my
goes, no, I want to drive the sun chariot. So finally his dad goes, listen, we'll talk about it later. My alarm is going off. I have to leave now. Stay here. I'll talk when I get back tonight. Phaethon goes, no, promised on the river Styx. I'm out of here. And he chose to go jump in the sun chariot, and he wants to drive it across the sky. So as soon as he jumps in there, he grabs the little reins, snaps them, boom, and starts taking off across the sky.
Santa Claus.
Now we get to stop with him driving it across the sky.
Santa Claus.
Although I will show you, little bullies are going to pop up here in just a moment.
Oh my God.
Something's going to happen. If it helps, tomorrow's story is even better about a teenager making poor choices. It's about a teenager who gets the holy pooey beat out of them.
Me.